Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, battle in the House. A chaotic kickoff in Washington as Republican lawmakers failed to elect a speaker on day one of the new Congress. After 3 rounds of voting, Republican leader Kevin McCarthy still does not have the top job. We'll take a look at what to expect today as the GOP tries to unite behind a candidate. Support for Damar. Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin remains in an ICU this morning after collapsing on the field during Monday night's game. We'll have the latest on his condition right now. Plus, the outpouring of support from across the NFL and beyond. Back to masks. As students return to the classroom after winter break, there's something else coming back too. Masks. With COVID and flu cases on the rise, some of the country's biggest school districts are telling students to mask up. Why medical experts say this is not a repeat of last winter's COVID surge. Also this morning, crypto collapse. Former crypto king Sam Bankman-Fried pleads not guilty to fraud charges. And now we're hearing from one of the investors who lost thousands before the company's collapse. We'll ask that investor how he now feels about crypto and if he's hopeful he'll get his money back. Happy to have you with us on this Wednesday. My pink helped me remember what day it is. I keep thinking it's Thursday this morning. Happy to have you at home with us. We begin this morning in Washington with questions about this morning about who will be leading the new Congress.
Yesterday's opening session for the House quickly turned to chaos. For the first time in 100 years, Republicans failed to elect a Speaker of the House. The party ended the day locked in a stalemate after holding 3 separate votes, all ending with Republican leader Kevin McCarthy falling short of the votes needed to secure the position.
No person having received the majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, a speaker has not been elected.
And this morning, McCarthy is digging in his heels, saying he has no plans to give up.
Members are talking. We're walking through. I think we'll find our way to get there. And this is a healthy debate. It might not happen on the day we want it, but it's going to happen. We're not that far away. We only need 11 more votes to win.
NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us now with the latest on all this. So, Julie, the House adjourned until noon today. As of last night, the math was not adding up for McCarthy to win the position. In fact, it was moving in the opposite direction. So what can we expect today?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Well, first, in practical terms, Americans are waking up today to essentially a government that is not functioning. With the House failing to elect their speaker, they're not really allowed to conduct any business, nor are they able to, according to House rules. So today, for Kevin McCarthy, he's hoping to at least make some sort of progress as the day goes along. They'll likely bring up another vote if they think the votes are there for him. Last night, we closed out 3 unsuccessful votes for McCarthy, none of them resulting, of course, in anyone getting 218, that magic number. And he only stands to lose about 4 Republicans with the narrow majority that he was able to win in November in the election. So today, a really big day for McCarthy. Not necessarily at this point do we know whether they'll be able to vote and successfully elect him, but really there is nobody right now that has those 218 votes. So we'll just see as today gets along.
So Republicans, or at least McCarthy's team, trying to break the impasse, but there is that group of holdouts. They're standing firm. Do we know, is there any ground for a compromise with McCarthy, or are they looking to go in a totally different direction no matter what? And then if it's not McCarthy, then who?
I think it's important to remember this is not something that McCarthy and his allies have been trying for overnight, right? They've been working the entire holiday break. They've been working really in many ways even before the midterm elections as McCarthy made his bid for speakership known. He's been trying to get this position since 2015. This has been something top of mind for him. So they've been continuing to negotiate overnight with those holdouts, but in many ways, those votes continuing to bolster his opposition as they saw even an increase in opposition against McCarthy as those vote totals went on, ending the night in 20 against him. So McCarthy's team is continuing to try to at least publicly appear positive, but Democrats even are catching on to what this means. I want you to take a listen to what Speaker Pelosi and a few others had to say yesterday.
As one who loves this institution, I think it's a sad day.
That is the failure of Republicans. The Republicans are the party of never, and it's always never when they don't like somebody. And that's how we feel.
Sad day for the House of Representatives as an institution. Sad day for democracy. It's a sad day for the American people.
Not often we see Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, in the same side of things as those two Democrats, part of Democratic leadership. But obviously here, McCarthy's allies, Democrats, even Republicans in the Senate, really realizing what this means now and how chaotic it looks for Republicans.
I mean, so quickly, Julie, for Republicans, what is at stake here?
I mean, really everything, Joe. Right now, it looks like, and Democrats are successfully painting Republicans in the House as being disheveled, as not being able to get it together as they take on this new majority in the lower chamber. And this really has practical effects for Americans around the country, right? As I mentioned, our government is currently not functioning. There's nothing they're able to do. Even congressmen who were recently elected aren't able to help their constituents because they haven't been sworn in. So this is practically really bad for Republicans not to have a functioning government. And of course, as we look ahead to the next elections in 2024, this could have practical effects there as well.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
And now to the latest on the condition of Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin. The 24-year-old remains in critical condition this morning at a Cincinnati hospital after collapsing and suffering a cardiac arrest during Monday night's game against the Bengals. Hamlin received CPR for several minutes on the field before being taken away in an ambulance. The game was later suspended and then postponed. There has been an outpouring of support for Hamlin since then. Niagara Falls was lit in blue last night. That's what you see on your screen right now. That's for Hamlin's Buffalo Bills, as well as the Bengals Stadium where Hamlin collapsed. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett is in Cincinnati, and we're also joined again today by NBC Sports host and reporter Corey Robinson. Good morning to both of you. We're happy to have you with us. So let's begin, Maura, with you. We're hearing from Hamlin's family. What's the latest on his condition? What do we know at this hour?
Well, here at UC Health, Damar Hamlin remains in critical condition, but we do know from a family spokesperson who tweeted overnight that his vitals returned to normal and he was able to sleep with the assistance of a breathing tube. Doctors continued to run tests overnight, but obviously we're still waiting on any more details in terms of his specific condition after suffering that cardiac arrest on the field on Monday night. The NFL has said that his heartbeat had been restored before he left the field, before the ambulance took him here, and he had spent the night in the intensive care unit. His family releasing a statement yesterday saying that they're expressing gratitude and thanks for all of the support they've received from the community, but also wanting to acknowledge the speed at which the medical professionals responded and were able to get him here so quickly. And they just say that they're waiting minute by minute, hour by hour, but that he is fighting. Savannah.
Corey, let's bring you in here. Now, of course, if you were watching the game, if you watched our coverage yesterday, you saw the faces of those players. They were on both teams visibly upset by what they witnessed on the field. And now the NFL is facing criticism over its handling of the incident and the amount of time it took to actually postpone the game rather than just suspend it or give the players a little bit of time. Can you explain what goes into making these types of operational decisions and where that criticism stands today?
Well, the criticism, I think, lies on this one word of trauma. And because what you're doing is you're basically exposing trauma not only to, obviously the players on the field who have to sit there and watch their teammate and their loved one, potentially battle for their life. That's what we were watching. This is a life and death scenario. And then you also think about, this is being streamed live into the homes of millions and millions of Americans, little kids watching with their parents. So we're talking about a communal trauma. And that, I think, is where the criticism lies. That's why televise that for so long. But I do think that the correct thing, and I think Peter King talked about this in his podcast last night, as far as how the NFL handled this, you want to be able to acquire all the information. So the fact that both coaches were on the phone with the league, and Roger Goodell, the commissioner, was trying to get information from every single person, every stakeholder, from the NFLPA, who's working closely with the coaches and the league and the medical professionals from both teams. That's how those conversations are generally reached at. But I do think, Savannah, the interesting question is, well, if you want to make the right decision, how long will you take? But do you need to live stream it? And I think that was the biggest question: is why was the trauma live streamed?
Yeah, absolutely. With no information and everyone just sort of watching in confusion. Absolutely. Maura, we've seen this major outpouring of support for Hamlin across the country that includes millions of dollars raised for a toy drive campaign he has on GoFundMe. Tell us more about how he's being honored.
Well, there's just been an absolute flood of prayers and love and support. Several Buffalo Bills players staying here in Cincinnati to make sure that they can give that support to their teammate. Fans showing up here yesterday, a small prayer vigil being held, lots of social media reaction in terms of that support, because this is a young athlete who was at the beginning of his career and had a lot of drive to fulfill his dream, and he'd clearly conveyed that to his fans and a lot of his teammates. And that impact is not just here in Cincinnati or in Buffalo. It's in places and other places that he touched, like Pittsburgh, where he's from. I want to hear from the Steelers head coach, who spoke about the drive Hamlin has.
Man, it's a really personal thing for me, being a Pittsburgher, and that young man being a Pittsburgher. I've known that guy probably since he was about 12. Just got a lot of respect and love for him as a human being, his commitment to the pursuit of his goals and dreams of doing what it is he's doing right now, which is playing in the NFL.
That sentiment echoed across fans and players that we've heard from, that commitment to the game as well as to his community as those prayers continue to come in as we wait for more updates on Hamlin's condition. Guys.
Corey, also Monday night's postponement, of course, comes at a critical point of the season with the final week of the regular season scheduled for this weekend. And we heard yesterday that this particular game will not be played out this week. Talk to us about the challenges this poses for the league going forward.
I honestly don't think it really poses as much challenges as you would think, because on first blush you think, okay, well, this is a huge game, and once again, like, this doesn't matter in the scope, because we're talking about life and death, right? But there are three teams competing for the number one spot in the AFC. So you're thinking, okay, this is home field advantage and a first-round bye. But once again, the NFL has made it very clear, and I think this is a good thing, the strength and speed with which they've spoken with a unified voice, from the Bengals president coming out and saying that love and humanity has come to the forefront, that we're seeing the human side of the game, the fan outpouring that we just heard about from Mara, the league office saying, look, we're not even thinking about rescheduling this game or postponing this game at the current moment. We're focused on Damar Hamlin, the NFLPA, the players, the referees coming out, their association, from all levels. Everyone's saying we're focused on player safety. I think it'd be inconsistent for the league to then say, okay, well, how can we schedule this game going into the final regular season? I think finally, the last point here, if you're really focused on player safety, you cannot make a decision until you find out what happens to Damar Hamlin. And I think the final piece is that there are rules as far as like tie breaking. So I don't think that there's any issue as far as, okay, well, how would this get resolved? Just go to NFL.com and there's like a 20-page document on all the contingency plans, because the NFL operationally is, unmatched as far as contingencies. So I think that the most important thing that all of us have to realize is that a first-round bye or home field advantage is not more important than a player's life. So just cancel the game, don't play it.
Yeah. Corey and Mara, thank you both so much for getting us up to speed this morning.
Damar Hamlin's injury sent shockwaves through Buffalo, a famously dedicated fan base lovingly referred to as the Bills Mafia. And in Cincinnati, some fans of both the Bills and Bengals spent the night outside Hamlin's hospital praying for his recovery. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock reports from Buffalo on how the football community is coming together.
On the field, the players' faces and free-flowing tears told a story. The same pain channeled by a community here in Buffalo, bearing strikingly similar expressions at a vigil.
I think we all watched their hearts break. We watched that on their faces. And knowing how much they love their teammates, it's a brotherhood. We watch it every day.
As they await the fate of Damar Hamlin, number 3, the human aspect transcending any sporting interest.
To see this young man who I could have parented, this young man, and just as a mother to know that his mother is, is sitting in limbo and waiting, and it's exhausting.
The blow, a 24-year-old's dreams compromised moments after he just hugged his own mother. This hitting Buffalo natives on the heels of an unthinkable year that included a race-inspired mass shooting, a brutally fatal snowstorm, and for the Bills family, the tragic death of a player's brother.
And it just kind of feels like, how much more can we possibly have to carry,
The organizer of this prayer vigil, Jill Kelly, wife of Bills great Jim Kelly, acknowledging that Monday Night Football game was an unusually difficult scene to process.
Jim was quick to say last night that he has never experienced anything like that, seen anything like that. And what little we did see. I mean, I can only imagine how traumatizing everything that happened last night was to the players and the coaches.
Hamlin's cardiac arrest ultimately prompting the NFL to postpone the game indefinitely.
A lot of times we navigate unprecedented situations and we have really high expectations of how it should be handled, what should happen. We're kind of being fueled by our emotions in the moment.
But with this community and the sports world solely focused on the well-being and recovery of Damar, Bills Mafia has become the picture of resilience in spite of such devastating trauma.
I'm not here, to mourn. We're not here. It's not a vigil. We're praying and we're walking on the faith that we have that Damar will be okay.
For all of us, we're human beings before we're anything else. All these other labels don't mean anything when something like that happens. And so it was so much greater than football, and prayer was the answer.
Support and faith leading the way far outside the confines of any stadium. Sam Brock, NBC News, Buffalo.
Now, this morning, new details are coming to light about the arrest of the man suspected of killing 4 University of Idaho students. Bryan Kohberger made his first appearance yesterday in Pennsylvania, where he agreed to be extradited. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has the latest.
Bryan, what are you doing?
Handcuffed and in a prison jumpsuit, Bryan Kohberger was escorted into a packed Pennsylvania courtroom in a brief hearing telling the judge he will not fight extradition to Idaho. The 28-year-old says he is not responsible for the murder of 4 University of Idaho students last November, according to his public defender.
He believes he's going to be exonerated. That's what he believes. Those were his words. So he's really been very easy to talk to, actually, and he's in a calm demeanor.
Kohberger grew up in eastern Pennsylvania, graduating last year from DeSales University with a master's in criminal justice. Heavy security, state and local police surrounded the small county courthouse. 2 law enforcement sources tell NBC News forensic genealogy, the DNA of extended family members, played a role in his arrest. Kohberger was studying to get his doctorate in criminology from Washington State, just 15 minutes from the crime scene. He drove cross-country with his father in December in the white Hyundai Elantra authorities had been looking for. Body cam footage obtained by NBC News shows Indiana state troopers pulling the father and son over on the highway. Kohberger's attorney says they were stopped twice on that trip for speeding and tailgating.
I believe it to be a random coincidence.
Kohberger's parents say they are cooperating with authorities, while the father of Kaylee Gonsalves says he is eager to come face-to-face with his daughter's alleged killer.
I want him to be sick of seeing us and sick of knowing that these people won't let it go.
When Kohberger is extradited to Idaho, he will be formally charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. He's expected to plead not guilty. Back to you.
All right, Stephanie Gosk, thank you so much.
Now to California, where a father is facing charges this morning after police say he deliberately drove his car off a cliff. Inside that car, his wife and 2 young children. Everyone managed to survive the crash, and authorities are calling that nothing short of a miracle. NBC News correspondent Nyla Charles has the latest on the investigation.
A daring rescue caught on camera in California after a car carrying 2 adults and 2 children flew off a cliff and plunged into the jagged rocks below, just missing the Pacific Ocean, sending onlookers into shock.
I could see in my rearview mirror just the car being, straight like this, and then all of a sudden just disappeared down.
Authorities now saying there's probable cause to believe the crash was an intentional act, arresting the driver for attempted murder and child abuse. San Mateo County and state officials saying the car fell 250 feet, just a turn off of California's coastal Route 1. Robin Johnson called 911.
Did not think for 1 second anyone was surviving that.
But they did, saved by the timing of low tide and California Highway Patrol's incredible crew, like flight officer and paramedic Sean Bouye.
Are the victims lucky that they didn't fall into the water?
During high tide, this would have been underwater, this location. In fact, where they landed was still wet from the previous tide that I covered.
The area, called Devil's Slide, known for its scenic views and sharp drop-off. Cal Fire San Mateo firefighters rappelling down the cliff first.
The damage to the vehicle would indicate that it hit and then flipped several times. Landed mostly on its wheels. So we immediately put a plan in place to lower rescuers down to the vehicle to get eyes and assess what we had.
Then helicopters called in. Bouye hoisted a firefighter down to the stranded people.
As we got even closer, we were told that the firefighters had rescued 2 children and that the adults still needed to be rescued, but they were trapped in the car.
A storm was approaching, threatening the rescue.
It's making time more of the essence.
And their survival even more astounding. After the rescue, all 4 occupants were hospitalized, the adults with major but non-life-threatening injuries, and the 2 children relatively unharmed, according to California Highway Patrol.
We had 4 survivors in a collision where there shouldn't have been any survivors. I mean, it is truly a miracle that they're alive.
A miracle that may end with the driver in court.
Our thanks to Naila Charles for that report. The California Highway Patrol says the driver, Dharmesh Patel of Pasadena, was arrested in the hospital. Authorities say after interviewing witnesses and gathering evidence all night, they think driving off the cliff was an intentional act. Patel is being treated for injuries and then will be booked into jail after he's released from the hospital. The investigation is still ongoing.
Now let's get to a check of your morning news now weather.
Meteorologist Angie Lassman joins us. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. We look to the East Coast where we're dealing with some severe weather as well as some snowy conditions. Let's take a look at the video that this system showed us of the impacts that were happening yesterday in the Twin Cities. You can see plenty of snow falling there. They received anywhere from 5 to 10 inches of snow around Minneapolis, so it made for dangerous travel. And that's just one part of this system. We also have the severe weather part that is impacting folks to the south. So let's show you some of those accumulations as far as our snowfall that we're expecting on top of what we saw yesterday. We'll still see the upper Midwest get anywhere from 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches of snow, especially along the lakes. In the southern part of this system, we're seeing more active weather, a line of severe thunderstorms that continues to march its way to the east, impacting folks in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia with a tornado watch that's going to go in effect, or that is going to remain in effect, rather, through the afternoon hours. You can see where we're pinpointing the most impactful weather. It will include still the tornadoes. It'll include the hail as well as the damaging wind gusts in places like Macon and Tallahassee are included in that. So just be weather aware through the day today. That goes for the West Coast, too. We're watching another storm, thanks to an atmospheric river, bring plentiful moisture onshore for folks in California today. And it's really just too much all at once. You can see that rain has already worked onshore and will continue to through the day today with impressive rainfall rates of over an inch per hour. You can see why 33 million people up and down California are in that flood watch at this time. We'll see quick water rises with heavy rain working through. Some of these locations may receive up to 8 inches of rain by the time we get through today and into tomorrow. So we once again will be looking at the landslide issue, the flooding concern, as well as some washed out roads. And not to mention, this system will also bring with it some damaging winds, really strong winds in some places like San Francisco, where those wind gusts could near 50 miles per hour, guys. So that means, of course, down trees, widespread power outages on top of the really heavy rain that'll cause flooding.
All right. Angie, thank you so much.
Thanks, Angie.
Coming up, a sign of bipartisanship.
President Biden is traveling to Kentucky today, holding an event with Republican Senate Leader Mitch McConnell. Up next, the significance of this rare joint appearance and what it means for the Biden administration's agenda in 2023. Stay with us. Welcome back. President Biden is hitting the road today, touting his economic achievements and his plan to rebuild America's infrastructure. This afternoon, he's set to deliver remarks in Kentucky, and he'll have an unlikely guest by his side when he does. NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba joins us now with more on this trip. Monica, good to see you. So President Biden is making this rare joint appearance with Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, and it's to highlight infrastructure spending, like I just said. So why is the president having this event, first of all, in Kentucky, and how significant is it that there'll be this joint appearance?
It is a very important event for the White House, Savannah. President Biden will be talking about a bridge that connects Kentucky and Ohio, and that is why he's going to be joined with officials of both parties from both of those states, talking about more than $2 billion now that has been pledged to refurbish that key bridge you're seeing right there on your screen. This is something that President Biden promised to do about a year and a half ago, and it's something that now he is able to do because of the bipartisan infrastructure law. So they're specifically going to talk about this one bridge there in Kentucky and then why they want to also add improvements to other bridges. But the fact that he will be standing next to Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is remarkable, not just because of what you mentioned in terms of the two men having a relationship over the last couple of years, but not always a necessarily close or warm one since they disagree on so much. But just think about the split screen today where you're going to see the president and the minority leader there while all of this drama continues to unfold in the House and there's still no speaker. Savannah.
Absolutely. It's certainly something to keep in mind. While those are two very different scenes we'll see play out. I know also the Biden administration is spending this whole week really highlighting his economic agenda. What's the significance of the timing of this push, and what else will we see unfold this week?
So bipartisanship is going to be a big theme of 2023, according to White House officials that I've spoken to, and that's also probably going to be a big theme in the State of the Union address. So this today kicks off a series of events the president, the vice president, other top officials are going to be doing around the country, implementing and talking about the economic initiatives they were able to pass in the first 2 years of the administration. So the question now becomes, are there other things they're going to be able to work on with Congress? They would like to do that, but it's unclear. So they're going to be looking at what they've thought was successful in the past to try to chart a path forward now. Savannah.
All right, Monica Alba at the White House for us. And of course, again, we will keep checking out that split screen of what's going on in Congress as the president's on the road. Monica, thanks so much.
To the Vatican now, where tens of thousands of mourners have paid their respects to the late Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. More are expected to visit St. Peter's Basilica today, where the retired Pope is lying in state ahead of tomorrow's funeral. NBC News foreign correspondent Claudio Lavaga is at the Vatican for us this morning. So, Claudio, Pope Francis paid tribute to his late predecessor in his general audience earlier this morning. What did he say, and how are the crowds looking today?
Good morning, Joe. Yes, this is the third and last day where the body of Pope Benedict XVI will be lying in state in St. Peter's Basilica. One last chance for the faithful to bid their farewell. The Vatican said that with the first 3 hours of this morning, about 24,000 people paid their respects. That's in line with what we saw in the last couple of days, about 60 to 70,000 people a day who bid him farewell. And also, as you mentioned, Pope Francis, once again, during the general audience, he usually holds with the faithful on Wednesday, again, paid his respects and his tribute. And just read a passage of what he said. He called him a great master of catechesis. His acute and gentle thought was not self-referential, Pope Francis said, but ecclesial, because he always wanted to accompany us in the encounter with Jesus, Joe.
Let's talk about the preps for tomorrow's funeral. What can we expect, and who is set to attend?
Well, tomorrow morning at 9:30 Rome time, the Mass, the funeral will be held in St. Peter's Square. It will be presided by Pope Francis, the first time that a ruling pope presides over a funeral mass of a retired or emeritus pope. There will be about 60,000 people at least attending, 400 bishops, 4,000 priests, delegations from many countries, including Germany, which was the Pope Emeritus' home country. So it will be quite a moment, Joe, tomorrow morning.
All right, Claudio, thank you so much.
And let's stay overseas and get you some more international headlines and what Russia is now saying about a Ukrainian missile attack that killed dozens of soldiers.
NBC's Raph Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv with that and other world headlines. Raph, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Savannah, that's right. Russia has now raised the official death toll from that Ukrainian attack on a barracks. The Russian Defense Ministry is now saying 89 soldiers were killed, up from 63. But Russia is blaming the troops themselves, saying they were making unauthorized cell phone calls, which gave their position away. China is threatening to respond to the U.S. and other countries which have imposed new travel restrictions amid surging Chinese COVID numbers. A growing number of nations are demanding that travelers from China show a negative PCR test before departure. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says it's unacceptable for China to be singled out. And finally, soccer legend Pelé has been laid to rest in Brazil, bringing an end to what was an epic two-day funeral. Nearly 250,000 people, including the president of Brazil, turned out to pay their final respects in Pelé's hometown of Santos. He was buried in a mausoleum decorated like a soccer stadium. So, guys, quite the send-off for a global soccer icon.
Yeah, no surprise they're sending them off in such an incredible way.
Absolutely. Really cool to see.
Raf Sanchez, thank you.
Coming up, it will soon be easier for people to access an abortion.
The FDA is allowing pharmacies to offer abortion pills. What this means for people in states where abortion is banned or restricted. Next.
We're back with changes in classrooms across the country as students return from the holiday break.
Some schools are reinstating mask requirements as a new COVID variant spreads. NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns is in Paterson, New Jersey with more on this. So Dasha, good morning. Walk us through the reasons for bringing back some of these mask mandates. What is it the school districts are saying about it?
Yeah, hey, Joe, good morning. For some students across the country, the start of 2023 might be looking a little bit more like 2020, but medical experts say we're not in the same place, but this is an important tool at this time. Think about it like this. We've got this triple-demic that the nation's dealing with, right? We've got COVID, flu, RSV. There are other viruses and infections going around as well. Some hospitals across the country have been overwhelmed. In fact, recently there was a federal team that had to be sent to New Mexico where their pediatric centers were overflowing. We also are coming off of the busiest travel season since before the pandemic. So many people were traveling across the country, seeing their family members, going to large gatherings over the holiday season. Now, all of those kids are coming back into classrooms, interacting with teachers, interacting with other students. And so school districts are saying they're following the science. They're seeing that the numbers are ticking up or are at a high place in their area. And so they're implementing these mask mandates temporarily so that students can stay in the classroom.
And Dasha, what's the reaction been like from parents and students to masking back up?
Well, Savannah, as you can imagine, it's been a mixed reaction. Some are frustrated. Some feel like we're going backwards, a little bit of deja vu here. But I don't think anybody wants to see kids return to remote learning. They want to keep kids in the classroom. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. So from the folks we've been talking to, parents are on board if that is what's going to keep their kids in school learning with their peers and with their educators.
Dasha, yesterday we spoke with the Philadelphia school superintendent. He said they were doing this. The plan was hopefully for 2 weeks, 10 days and no longer. How long do school officials you've been hearing from think these renewed restrictions are going to have to last?
Yeah, most districts that are implementing this are doing it on a temporary basis. Most are doing it for about 10 days to 2 weeks through mid-January or so, and then they'll reassess. But medical experts I've been talking to say that's the right approach at this point. Like I said, it's not actually deja vu to 2020. We're in a different place in the pandemic. We've got Paxlovid, we've got new treatments, we've got vaccine, and preventative measures are, of course, the first step. And so one of the doctors I spoke with, Dr. Patel, said this is more like if you're going to send your kid out and it's raining, you want to make sure that they have an umbrella or a raincoat. So think of masking more as sort of that temporary tool for a time when you need to implement those measures. It's not, back to masking all year round like we saw at the start of the pandemic, guys.
All right, Dasha Burns. Dasha, thank you so much.
Thank you. Now let's stay on medical news. It's time for your weekly checkup. We've got a bunch of important info today, including a study that shows teens who are glued to their phones might actually be causing changes to their brains.
Plus, it may be time to take a second to look at your family's medical history as researchers warn diabetes may be on the rise.
NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel joins us now for more on all these headlines that you might have missed. Hi, doctor. Good to see you. So we've all been guilty, of course, of spending way too much time on social media, doom scrolling sometimes. But a new study out of the University of North Carolina looked at the links between social media use and changes in kids' and teens' brains. What did they find out?
Yeah, Savannah, I'm just as guilty, so I need to practice what I preach in the doctor's orders here. This was a study that was done in about 200 middle school children and following them over 3 years with MRIs of their brains and separating them into categories, Savannah, of how many times they checked in with social media. So we had people that checked in less than 1 time a day and all the way as high as more than 15 times a day. I fall into that latter category, unfortunately. But in these middle school children, as you had more check-ins with social media over time, they saw an increased sensitivity to the reactions they had on social media. So whether they got likes or being affected by having someone dislike one of their comments. And that is something that researchers are very concerned about because these are really divergent brain processes. And we don't know the long-term implication. But in this case, the doctor's orders is really to think about everything in moderation. And that includes, by the way, any adult, including myself, and then encouraging more in-person social interactions. If we're so tuned to our on-screen likes and dislikes, switch those out for having friendships and connections that are in person.
Absolutely.
That
it's a good reminder for us all.
incredibly important.
No matter the age.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about this new study that aims to predict future diabetes rates in people under the age of 20. And researchers are warning of a substantial surge in cases. This was really a huge headline yesterday. What more can you tell us about it?
Yeah, Joe, this should be a wake-up call for any family, not just with a history of diabetes, but any family who really can reevaluate, and that's really all of us, our diet and our lifestyle. This was a study done kind of in conjunction with national databases to look after the last 20 years and what incidence of diabetes, how many people had type 1 and type 2 diabetes. As a reminder, type 1 diabetes, more common in the under 20 age group where your body does not produce insulin. But they projected to look out over the next 30 years, all the way out to 2060, and they found that cases of diabetes will double. So this is both type 1 and type 2 diabetes on the rise. And just to put some numbers on that, they expect 500,000 children under the age of 20 to have diabetes by 2060. So the doctor's orders here are very clear. Practice prevention as a family. Can't expect one child to have a healthy lifestyle if the rest of the family or the household doesn't copy that. And then get early screening. I practice and I generally don't think about screening younger children for diabetes. With the rise of obesity and a family history, especially in the mother, we are seeing an increase that is just of epic proportions.
Really important indicators there, too, to keep in mind. Also, Dr. while we have you, I do want to ask you about some news. The FDA announced abortion pills can now be offered at retail pharmacies. Obviously, it's a controversial subject with a lot of news around it in the last year, but how significant a change is this? And then also, what does this mean for women who are currently living in abortion-banned states?
Yeah, so just first, the regulatory policy. This has been a long time coming. The FDA has been trying to do this for several years now. And what this actual regulation that was passed yesterday through the FDA and authorized was really two things. Number one, these medication abortion pills, specifically mifepristone, which is used up to 10 to 12 weeks in pregnancy, can now be offered at retail pharmacies. Think like the pharmacies that you would visit to get most of your medications, CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, Fox pharmacies, small pharmacies as well. That's a change. Prior, it was limited to certain pharmacies, and you had to have in-person visits in many states. So these regulations free up access to retail pharmacies. Retail pharmacies have to opt in for it. So it's still not necessarily as widespread as we would hope. And then to your point, Savannah, about medication abortion state, it depends. Some states are incredibly strict and outlaw the use of any type of medication abortion pills. And then some states, it's not very clear, and the state law will put limits on, for example, needing to require an in-person doctor's visit in that state in order to get such a prescription. So this is a step forward, but I certainly think there's more room to go when we talk about reproductive access.
All right, Dr. Kavita Patel, great information for us there. Thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Now to a new study that shows an alarming rise in young children ingesting cannabis. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa has more on the growing problem, plus the advice doctors are sharing to help keep your kids safe.
Hey there. So in the last 5 years, the number of states that have legalized recreational marijuana has nearly tripled, edibles becoming more accessible to adults and inadvertently young children. We dig into a staggering new report that shows the number of kids under the age of 6 years old getting into cannabis is soaring. From gummies to chocolates, many cannabis edibles look a lot like regular snacks. But these THC-infused products are catching more than adults' attention. A report from medical journal Pediatrics reveals the rate of children under 6 eating cannabis edibles is skyrocketing, rising more than 1,300% in recent years. Nearly all of the exposures reported happened in the child's own home, and more than a fifth resulted in hospitalization.
For a long part of it, we didn't know if he would be okay.
Elizabeth Perry's son, Oliver, had to be medevaced after getting into her cannabis-infused gummies recommended by her doctor as a sleep aid. She takes less than 1 gummy. Her toddler ate 15.
It looks like candy. It tastes sweet, and nothing about it to a child gives any indication that it's something that he should not consume.
The troubling trend ballooned, researchers say, as families spent more time at home during the pandemic and a growing number of states legalized recreational marijuana.
The symptoms kids can get range quite a bit. It can be very mild and nothing can happen. We've also seen kids get pretty sick, which includes coma, difficulties breathing.
The pediatric study recommends you store edibles in a locked compartment away from the kitchen. And if your child accidentally ingests any, call your local poison control center immediately. Some states like California have passed laws regulating product packaging, but nothing at the federal level. The FDA says it is actively working to address concerns and looking at how products are being marketed. Back to you.
All right. Our thanks to Emily Aketa for that report.
Coming up, the latest on the former crypto king charged with stealing billions of dollars from investors.
What's next for Sam Bankman-Fried after he pleaded not guilty to fraud charges? Plus, we're speaking to one of the investors who says he lost thousands. Next.
We're back now with the latest on disgraced crypto billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried, who appeared in a Manhattan court yesterday. The former boss of the collapsed crypto exchange FTX pleaded not guilty to fraud charges and to stealing billions of dollars worth of customer money. It was his first court appearance since he was released on a record pretrial bail of $250 million. If convicted, Bankman-Fried could face up to 115 years in jail.
We want to bring in one of the people affected by the collapse of FTX, Jake Thacker. Jake says he had about $70,000 worth of investments in his FTX account before the company's collapse. Good to have you with us. So, I mean, first of all, walk us through the moment you realized something wasn't right with your FTX account. What was it that went through your mind? What did you do?
Yeah, definitely in panic mode. And at first, everyone thought that it was a glitch. There had been several on other platforms earlier in the year, and some of us kind of wrote it off, like, "Oh, this is kind of what's happening this year, and we'll see." But after a few days, after about 48 hours, everyone started to really realize this is a big problem and started to panic and tried as best they could to extract the funds that they had, transfer anything that they could do. The platform itself was very unreliable in the later stages of the crash.
Absolutely. And I think maybe an important kind of distinction, especially for somebody who might be confused by crypto or never was involved, is essentially what was happening here is it would be like where you keep your money with Fidelity or something like that were to be collapsing, that you just couldn't access anything that you had as this was unfolding. And I know that you've been trading crypto for a couple of years now. Has this changed your opinion at all, the FTX collapse with crypto? Are you still invested in other platforms, or is do you have a feeling of instability around crypto in general?
Yeah, it certainly has changed my opinion. I have extracted all my funds from other exchanges and haven't been trading for the past month or so since the collapse, essentially. And I've mentioned to other people that I would like to get back into the marketplace, but I'm very curious to see what happens with the trial and investigation and maybe whatever the regulators decide to do moving forward. But it'll be some time and much more vigilant about how I approach it and why and when.
As we mentioned just a moment ago, the former FTX boss, Sam Bankman-Fried, has pleaded not guilty to fraud charges. What do you hope to see in this criminal case? And then as far as you personally, do you think you can get back any of your money? What are your hopes for that and trying to make that happen?
Yeah, I certainly want to see the people that are responsible for this held accountable. There's no question about that. Something happened, and in these types of scenarios, there are a lot of people that often walk free, and it's a good sign that it has moved so quickly and that there are parties that have been identified and indicted, and there could be some repercussions as a result. I think that's fantastic. I'm a little worried, though, that this will turn into a crusade on crypto, and that's what I'm most nervous about. And like I said, I would like to get back into the marketplace at some point, and I'm afraid that this is going to be a catalyst for overreacting and overregulating. To your question of whether will I get my money back at some point in the future, that's 50-50. I think the likelihood and the reality is that people will get some, but I am very skeptical that people will be made 100% whole at the end of the day.
All right. Jake, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Especially during this stressful situation. All right, let's stay on financial headlines now. Following the holiday chaos, Southwest Airlines is now trying to make things right with customers.
CNBC's Pippa Stevens joins us with that and other money news. Pippa, good morning.
Good morning. Well, Southwest Airlines is offering 25,000 frequent flyer points to passengers affected by its holiday meltdown. The bonus miles are in addition to refunds and reimbursement for expenses such as hotels and rental cars. Families and other groups traveling together will receive 25,000 points per person, which Southwest says are worth more than $300. However, the value will vary because redeeming points are based on factors such as travel distance and demand. And consumer spending on technology is forecast to drop for a second straight year in 2023. The Consumer Technology Association, which puts on the annual CES trade show in Las Vegas, says a looming recession will weigh on demand. The group says the tech sector faces four major challenges: weakening demand for and a potential glut of semiconductor chips, a shortage of 10 million workers, stubborn inflation, and rising interest rates. And a group of video game testers have voted to form Microsoft's first U.S. labor union. Microsoft has agreed to recognize the group from its ZeniMax Studios unit. Microsoft bought ZeniMax, which owns popular games such as The Elder Scrolls and Fallout, for $8 billion in 2021. Organizers say they hope a union will help them improve job opportunities and reduce unfair pay practices. Back to you.
All right, Pippa Stevens, thank you so much.
Coming up on Morning News Now, a lasting legacy in the House.
Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi has been a trailblazer as the first female House Speaker, and while she's no longer in that role, her female colleagues tell NBC News her impact is still there. Their stories are up next.
Welcome back. You know the saying, there's no business like show business. Well, on Broadway, business is booming, at least for some shows. This holiday season, theaters were packed. The Broadway League says during New Year's week alone, about 92% of Broadway seats were taken, grossing more than $52 million. Funny Girl just set a new box office record, grossing more than $2 million for its 9-performance week. And The Piano Lesson, starring Samuel L. Jackson, was not only one of the highest-grossing non-musical plays of the week, it also smashed records as the highest-grossing August Wilson play in Broadway history. It's important to note there are shows that are doing really well. There are also a number of shows that are going to be closing soon, so you sort of have this mix of the haves and have-nots right now. But for those shows that are doing well, it's really a good time for Broadway.
Maybe they have you as a fan. I think you contributed to some of these.
I wasn't here during the holidays, so I can't say I contributed to any of that $50 million or whatever. But I've definitely given them some money.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Finally, this hour, it's the end of an era on Capitol Hill as Congress begins a new term without Nancy Pelosi as House Speaker. Pelosi was the first woman to ever hold the title and blazed a trail for generations of women in Washington. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale spoke to some of her colleagues about her lasting impact on Congress.
Ask these Democratic lawmakers about House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and it doesn't take long for the Pelosiisms to start flowing.
Know your why and center that. She often says to some of us in private is, no one's going to give you anything.
She always encourages to be your own leader.
Even if not every skill can be taught.
I cannot handle that level of stilettos. And
the history-making first female Speaker of the House, famous for her toughness and deep understanding of her caucus. Even amid clashes and disagreements, Pelosi paving the way for the next generation of strong female leaders.
Their ability to be female, to be able to be empathetic, and at the same time, sort of show you how to throw a punch.
When I came to Congress, there were 23 women, over 400 men, and 23 women. Come on, get out of here. So some of us just made a decision. We have to change this.
And she did. A change that was clear the day she announced her departure from leadership.
For me, the hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus.
There are now nearly 5 times as many women serving in the House as there were 35 years ago, in part due to Pelosi's recruitment and encouragement.
To learn from the best has just been extraordinary.
And once elected, Pelosi ensured women were in key positions.
How do you ensure that she's not the last female speaker?
Well, I think that's up to all of us, but she's set the blueprint. Be yourself, know your values, know your mission, and go execute.
And maybe in heels.
That's right.
Ali Vitale, NBC News, Washington.
And that does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
That the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.